All right, welcome to the muscular system. We're treating this as one of actually our shorter units. There's plenty to learn with the muscular system. We're just choosing to kind of go through it kind of rapidly to get through to some other systems. The muscular system is great to work on right after the skeletal system. We'll see some terms that we learn in the skeletal system. They also work very closely together. We'll see that the muscular system is actually attached to our skeletal system. Without a skeletal system, the muscular system would really have no purpose. It gives it stability, holds it up. So anyway, without any further ado, 3 types of muscle tissue. We learned this in, I think, our second unit of the year when we learned about the different types of tissues. We kind of went through and learned that there was 3 different types of muscle tissue. Let's recap and learn a little bit more on these. Smooth muscle is found in the walls of hollow organs and tubes of our body. They're involuntary, also called autorhythmic. This is the whole principle of why when we eat something, once we swallow it, it goes through the whole journey of our digestive system without us having to think about it. So it's involuntary. It functions without us having to think about it. This is a good thing, as we've already talked about in class before, because otherwise we would have to think about pushing food through our stomach or through our intestines and keeping pace of all that. This helps with that. This also helps with blood flow. Inside our blood vessels in certain places, there's smooth muscle that helps push it forward. We'll learn more about that with the cardiovascular system after Christmas. All right, so its appearance, if we were able to look at it, this is a great little diagram over here. Smooth muscle has no striations, as it's called. We're going to learn a little bit about what a muscle cell looks like. Smooth muscle has no striations, or it's non-striated, which is where it gets its name from. Smooth muscle. It has a smooth appearance. Cardiac muscle is also involuntary. Thank goodness. Our heart's able to beat on its own because we don't have to think about it. We have no real control over it. Before you think of it, yes, we can speed up our heart rate or calm it down somewhat, depending on practice. People that can stay calm under pressure tend to have a lower resting heart rate in stressful situations, but they don't have control over making their heart beat. It does it on its own, and that is a good thing. So this cardiac muscle is responsible for that. It contains what we call intercalated discs. Intercalated discs. This diagram shows it as these little blue marks. These are actually connections from cell to cell that help the whole heart work as a single unit. When we learn about the heart a little more, we'll see it does a lot of pumping of blood, obviously. And these intercalated discs help everything move as one. So instead of one side of the heart working on its own and its own rhythm, and the other side doing maybe a slower rhythm, this keeps everything at the same pace. And that helps drive blood through our circulatory system, hopefully keeping us alive. Yay! And the third and final type is the one that we'll mainly talk about, and the one that oftentimes we think about is skeletal muscle. These are attached to bones. And this is why I started out and said, hey, it's closely related to the skeletal system, skeletal muscle. These skeletal muscles have a lot of there's striations in these as well. Makes about 40% of our body weight. You can read all that. That's why I was kind of going through it. Primary function is movement of the body. Also provides structure and framework for the body. It also produces heat as another function that we kind of skip over because we're shortening up this unit. But provide heat for the body. These are under voluntary, unlike smooth and cardiac, which are involuntary. These are voluntary. It means we can control them. We have complete control over them. Now, a lot of times you hear about this term muscle memory. It's just simply the fact that when we do something so frequently or so often that we don't have to think about doing it. It's why you may shoot a free throw and you don't even have to think about move my arm this way or hold my hand exactly like this. We're just able to do it. It's the same principle of why you can type on your laptop or write with a pencil without much thought. It is muscle memory, but it's still under voluntary control. You can stop it at any movement. You can alter the way you do it. You can't really alter the way your heart beats. So skeletal muscle. There's 5 major characteristics of muscles. These words that end in ity. Contractility refers to the capacity of muscle to contract or shorten forcefully. This is how muscles move, as we're going to look at briefly. When they shorten, they contract together. Think about making a bicep muscle. When you say flex your bicep, your upper arm, what really happens is you actually shorten that muscle up. It causes it to mound up, showing how buff and swole you are. But it's really contracting. It's shortening up. Muscles are excitable. They have excitability. This simply means that a muscle responds to stimulation by nerves or hormones. When you think, move my leg, your nervous system, which your brain's a part of, is sending a nervous impulse, a muscular impulse down to your leg, foot, whatever you want to move, and it moves. It's excitable. Extensibility means that muscles can be stretched their normal resting length and beyond to a limited degree. Sometimes people think, oh, flexibility, and it is kind of like that. Your muscles can be stretched to how they're normally resting. When they're not being contracted, as we saw when making that bicep, they're resting. They're stretched out. They're elongated, if you were able to look at it out, without the skin being in the way. And then you can also stretch them out to a greater degree. This is why some people are able to do the splits. This extensibility, they're able to stretch their muscles beyond, the capacity that they normally find themselves in. Elasticity means simply when those muscles are stretched, they recoil back to their original length. So when you do the splits and then you go back to standing up normal or sitting down normal, all your muscles go back to their original shape. Think about a new rubber band, not one that's been stretched out a lot. It's elastic, right? You can stretch it out and stretch it around, a stack of papers or something else. And then when you take it off those papers, it goes back to its original size. Also, a balloon, you blow it up, you let the air out, it goes back to that normal, shape of the balloon. Of course, we see with those type objects, when you use them over and over and over again, they get stretched out. Muscles don't really do that, unless there is something wrong with muscles, or aging can do it, or disease, disorder, injury. But by and large, muscles go back to their original length thanks to elasticity, and they're adaptable. That's the fifth and final characteristic. They can be changed in response to how it is used. It's the reason that me and Arnold Schwarzenegger do not look alike, body-wise. I know you're shocked by this, but his muscles have adapted to how they're used. He has used them more than I've used mine, obviously. He's lifted lots of hard, heavy things, and they've adapted to that use. This is what I was thinking. There's two terms that we use with adaptability. One is atrophy. Atrophy is a decrease in muscle size due to not using it. Okay, maybe that's an injury. Maybe it's some kind of damage to the nervous system that we can't use it anymore. Think of somebody that's been paralyzed, okay, and no longer, we'll say from the waist down, they don't work. Their muscles, or they're not able to walk. They're not able to function from the waist down. If you look at their muscle tone in their legs, it oftentimes is atrophied or very smaller than it used to be. Hypertrophy, on the other hand, is increase in muscle size due to use or exercise. It's why Arnold Schwarzenegger's got big muscles, because he's used them frequently. When they hypertrophy, muscles get bigger, and this is their adaptability. Both of these shows the adaptability of muscles. These are two good, these are some good looks right here. This is a normal bicep, we'll say bicep brachii muscle, and somebody that has atrophy. Maybe they have nerve damage. Maybe they have some type of injury that's restricted the use. Long term, that muscle starts to shrink up, and it's simply our body's way of being efficient. Those muscles aren't being used. Our body's not going to give them the nutrients that they needed in the past because they're not being used. Those nutrients can go elsewhere. So anyway, that's atrophy and hypertrophy. Tendons hold muscles to bones. Okay, this is the what we've been learning. One of my things I'm big on. Ligaments, of course, we know hold bone to bone. That's like to like, holds ligaments, bones to bone. Tendons are what hold muscles to bone. I tore a tendon. It means it's a muscle injury. Okay. The connective tissue that extends from the muscle to form tendons. So we're going to see this with our lab later on. There's connective tissue over the top of this called fascia that holds all this muscle in place, and the end parts of the fascia extend outwards and connect to the bone. Move it out of the way. Underneath, down there where it says tendons bind muscle to bone, where it's sticking to the bone, that shows you how the tendons attach to the bones. Muscle names come from lots of different places. We're not going to worry about this too much. It could be where they start and where they stop. It could be the location. Like when it's biceps femoris is a muscle that attaches to the femur. Okay, it's found right there. So as we learn all these terms, whether it was through anatomical regions or from the skeleton even, we see that they come back. It can have to do with the size, maximus or medius, the shape of it. The deltoid is a delta or a triangle. And also sometimes the orientation. Rectus abdominis means it's erect. It's straight up and down. Okay. A couple different terms here. The origin of a muscle is the point at which muscle attaches to the more stable bone. This is the end of the muscle that's not going to move around a lot. Okay, it's going to stay pretty stationary. I like thinking of the biceps in this case. The origin of the bicep is up here at the scapula. Okay, up here around the shoulder, right? Because this doesn't really move a lot. Think about it. We bend at the elbow here to make this bicep contract or make it bigger, appear bigger. This is the insertion down here. It's the point where it attaches to the bone that undergoes the most movement. So the insertion is the place where it's going to move the most. The origin is the stationary end. And this red part in the middle here is the muscle belly. Okay, it's the muscle belly. It's what we think of when we think of, we see a muscle belly. Structural parts of the skeletal system, we're going to learn this more in the lab, but the fascia is this outer membrane. One thing I want you to know about the muscles are there is lots and lots of layers, okay? It starts out very, very small, and then those all small parts wrap together, and then a lot of those places that have wrapped together wrap with other areas, and then all of those combine together. So it's a series of cylinders really that makes up our muscles, our skeletal muscles. The fascia is the outermost membrane. It makes tendons. The epimysium or epimysium is the membrane around the muscle. It lies just underneath the fascia. And the sarcomere, this is one I really wanted you to know, is the smallest contractile unit of a skeletal muscle. This is the smallest part that we could take out of a muscle that's going to act like a muscle, that's going to have the characteristics of contractility or elasticity or excitability. Okay, so that's called a sarcomere. Anything below that, this myosin and actin, doesn't act like a muscle. Speaking of those two things, these are protein fibers. This is actually how muscles move. If we had another week or two, we'd probably look at this a little more closely. These two move over the top of each other and allows movement. Actin and myosin. Main thing I want you to know is they're the protein fibers within a sarcomere. And that's the end of our notes. Make sure you check out the short video right after this one to help out with your muscle diagram.